Good evening. I'd like to call to order the October
27th.
issue of
Yes,
the
2011.
Fayetteville Council of Neighborhoods.
That's important to get on these tapes too, because some of these guys try to find you a copy and they can't identify it if we don't put our words.
Because we don't bother to tell.
Yeah, but you usually do. I looked at one of the old ones today.
Let's start with the introduction of neighborhood representatives that are here. Start with you.
Craig Crocker and Jennings Plus. I think that actually I'm going to defer to Richard as to the general status of the neighborhood because he's better informed than I am.
Okay. I'm Don Connor with Root School Neighborhood Association.
Aubrey Shepherd, Town Branch Neighborhood Association.
Stan Lancaster, Jefferson Walker.
Richard Russell, Jennings Plus. I'm Richard Tiffany, and I don't know if I have a neighborhood organization in my area. I'm currently living on Willow Street between Spring and Center, and own property on Government Street next to the National Cemetery.
So you're in two. Two neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
That's your neighborhood, right, Aubrey?
Yes.
On one, on the Government Street.
His old house, yes.
And Karen Reese's Washington Willow. Okay. He might accidentally be a representative for Washington Willow. We'll have to put him in touch with Karen.
I'm looking right now. I don't see Washington Willow active right now.
They're not. Karen has moved outside the neighborhood association, so she said that she could not represent that neighborhood anymore.
Right.
And she had contacted several of the other members and asked them to appoint somebody, and they just haven't for a couple of years.
Yeah, they've been having block parties and stuff, but
They've been active, they
can't
just
seem
haven't
to-
been here.
yeah.
There's no party, huh?
Well, they try to take care of business in their neighborhood too.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty good at it. Okay, well, our order of business here is the nominating committee report on FCON officers.
Okay, well,
That would be you guys.
we
Take it away.
have talked, and more than once, and I reviewed the video of the meeting to confirm your date of first joining, which would be 2 years ago at this point. And so the bylaws say you're not eligible to run for chairman. However, we are listing you as a candidate for vice chairman, or whatever we call it. And Stan's agreed to be treasurer if no one else seeks that. And Richard said he would be willing to be the chairman if no one else steps forward for that job. And so that's our recommendation. But as usual, it's open for nominations from the floor. And so if there are any others who are here and want to nominate themselves, or some poor soul who's not here, and I did call several people late this afternoon, and some early in the day, and some earlier in the week, but I didn't get to everybody on the list. And still, as one of the videos I reviewed was J.P. Peters talking during the meeting last year. She was sitting over there, and when she had called a lot of people and discovered, they were inactive, or their phone number was missing, and that sort of thing. And of course, I found a little bit of that today, which I'll share at least one or two of those with Julie afterwards. But at least one of the former presidents agreed to contact the new president of their POA and remind that person to start attending if possible. But it is a tough thing, and JP was talking about it 2 years ago, a year ago, nearly, back in the spring or winter, that so many meetings of all kinds do not get good attendance. And it's, for some reason, maybe it's not election years, one reason. Maybe it's the economy, this, that, and the other, so many wonderful things to do in town. But anyway, you really do have to somehow contact as many people as possible regularly. So I would suggest you open the floor for further nominations and see if we have a motion on,
So you're making a motion, open the floor?
yes.
Anybody want a second?
Second.
Okay, floor's open. Anybody else want to charge in here? Well, there obviously doesn't seem to be anybody else that wants to charge in here, so.
Well, I make a motion, we accept those three nominations as to be elected.
Okay, that would be a motion to nominate.
Richard Russell as president or chairman, and you as vice chairman, and Stan to continue as treasurer, secretary treasurer.
Okay.
I think we call it.
You want to second that?
Has to be somebody other than us, though, right?
I don't think so.
Second.
Okay, very good. A vote? All in favor of that version?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Well, that's done. You're now the chairman.
He doesn't have to take office till the end of the meeting, so.
Oh, okay.
Show him a
Okay.
good meeting. So
Okay.
we'll
Well,
remember what they
we
voted.
haven't got a whole lot. The only thing we've really got on here is we're gonna try to figure out if we wanna have a holiday potluck dinner, as we usually do. Anybody open to discussion on this, when we would like to have it? You know, here's where we usually have it in coordination, in conjunction with the meeting, which is the last Thursday of the month. And where does that fall in relation to Thanksgiving?
It is on Thanksgiving.
That's not gonna work.
And
So that-
actually, this room is booked the 3 Thursdays before that.
Okay,
So a Thursday in November, if you want to hold it in this room, is not possible.
Well, I would suggest we explore, Mr. Chairman, the first week, December. I don't know what the 4th is that month, but that's always a tough sell. But I remember last year it was scheduled and canceled, and I think I suddenly was available to come, and it didn't happen, so I was disappointed. We had some good cooks here in the past for those things.
Julie, is December 8th open,
Is that the second?
or the 1st?
I will have to check the room availability.
Okay, check to the 1st or the 8th.
The first, I think, is most likely that this room is available.
It's the first Thursday of the month.
Right. There's
Um,
usually something going on downstairs, but I don't think in this room.
Actually, Thursdays are one of the busiest public meeting
I can't
nights.
remember what's
Yeah,
here on that Thursday.
But I will check. I
Thank you.
just can't confirm it
Okay,
right now.
check to see what's available,
Okay.
if we can get the 1st or the 8th, and if not, let's look at possibly the 7th as a possibility, and that will be our November and December meetings.
Right.
That'll be our combined meeting, because we all know that the end of December is virtually impossible for anybody.
Well, 7th as a Wednesday is pretty often an open space. And,
Yeah, Wednesdays are not a very busy meeting night.
So look at those 3 dates,
Okay.
see what you can come up with, email us, let us know what's happening.
Environmental action likely be in this room on the 8th, I believe.
Yeah. And then telecom on the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Telecom's on the 15th, isn't it?
Whatever the third Thursday.
It's the third Thursday now.
That'd be the 15th in this case. Okay. Okay, so we'll leave that up to our neighborhood coordinator person, Julie, to see what she can find for us, and get in touch with the new chairman. And of course, we always, as soon as we decide this, we'll send out emails accordingly, and we always invite anybody that wants to show up for these. And we sometimes have really good potluck dinners. We have seen in the past wonderful things come out of the potluck dinners. So, you know, some people can really cook. Okay, let's have neighborhood updates. We've got that taken care of. Do you want to defer to him?
Well, I'm trying to think. I was absent for some past weeks, but you have anything, Richard?
Well, there's been some noise and some driving around going on.
There was this is sort of inside baseball, but I was getting home last night, and or was it the night before last, and there was a huge, and was it an accident, the corner of South and South College?
You were in an accident?
No, I saw it. In fact, I had to take another route to get home because there were several fire trucks and I guess an ambulance. It's a frequent spot for accidents.
Where South hits South College?
Corner of South and South College.
Yeah, there's a jog in South. South doesn't align directly right there at that intersection. And sometimes things do happen there. I'm not familiar enough to know the mainstream topics that people usually bring up at these meetings, but I guess I'll learn pretty soon.
Well, I might mention, Richard, that maybe a meeting or two ago, I brought up the issue that some neighbors had brought to me about a certain neighbor of theirs that they were having problems with, and the meeting here, people in the meeting here suggested that those neighbors take this issue to the Planning Commission to explore what kinds of violations they might have.
Did you?
No, I told one of the neighbors that the first course of action should be, even before that, would be to contact the alderman person for the neighborhood. And I don't know if that took place or not.
Yeah, that would be Ward 1. That would have been Adela Gray and
Yeah.
Brenda Boudreaux.
Right.
But if there are issues regarding code compliance, all you have to do is call the office and just express your concerns, and they will send somebody over to see if they're in code. And I can tell you, having been a long-time resident of South Fayetteville, and in that area, I lived on South Street with them for many, many years when I was a little child. There's a whole lot of architecture that goes on down there that people try to get done before anybody can show up and tell them they can't do it.
Yeah, I didn't mean building codes necessarily, but
Well, I mean, their yard or whatever,
Yeah.
vehicles or whatever it is.
okay.
I've had good luck with it.
Okay.
So what sort of things were the issues, just in general?
Well, I was trying to be discreet, but issues having to do with a kind of, I mean, I'm a little surprised that you're asking me this, but a smell coming from a backyard, it was...
Oh, well, I'm familiar with that. It's right next door to me.
Well, I thought so. That's why I was trying not to use any names here.
And that wasn't getting solved, and it wasn't getting solved, and it wasn't getting solved.
Right.
And all of the normal courses of action were taken correctly, and all of the people showed up and talked about things and gave advice to the owners of these creatures that made the terrible smells. And it was never really exactly resolved. Some of the creatures were captured in the wild and taken prisoner at the city facility and kept for months. And then they were finally released back to the owner. But it finally resolved whenever the owner decided to move himself and his creatures.
Oh, I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, and so it's,
May we ask what kind of creatures you're speaking of?
well, you sure can. Everyone should know, recognize these kind of creatures. They run on 4 feet and have tails and bark at night.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I didn't think that we needed to be discreet in terms of the animals. I just meant I was going to leave the names out of it.
Yeah, you leave the names out of it, but
Well, if we have a.
So they had dog problems
Well, among other things.
and cat problems.
Well, no,
Well-
beyond animals.
Oh,
Yeah, probably to just confine the conversation to the dog problem, which is perennial and ongoing. And there used to be a really nice publication that the city had called Our Neighbor's Dog,
mm-hmm.
which had good sound advice on, person-to-person interactions and so forth.
Unless, of course, they won't cooperate with the person-to-person interaction,
Yeah.
which does happen.
So it was somewhere in the 3/4 of the way to being totally ridiculous. But there were people who were really offended, as you know, it was in the long hot summer.
Right.
And it wasn't being dealt with. So I thought it was interesting that it didn't get resolved, more than if it had gotten resolved.
What was it? Did you involve the health department as well as animal control?
As I understand it, they were called also.
They usually get things done. I mean,
Yeah, they usually do.
So,
And there-
people can say they're gonna comply and then just ignore them.
yeah, but I mean, they usually don't leave it at, yeah, you're gonna comply. We come back and check and they arrest people. I mean,
Yeah.
So I guess that sort of whetted my interest for, how city government works and how issues get addressed. That's probably part of why I'm here. I think people can get frustrated waiting on due process, but I haven't given up on it.
yeah. And if due process seems to slow down, which we've noticed in our own neighborhood and several other neighborhoods that we've had these problems in, that problem and other problems, sometimes we have to kind of jumpstart the process again, and it usually gets resolved. The only one that we can't seem to resolve easily is too many people living in a house. And a lot of times our best course of action on that one is we finally get in touch with the person that owns the house, because they're usually an out-of-state owner and they don't know that they're not supposed to be doing that to start with, and they'll generally take care of it. You send them the information that we've got on the website and talk to them about it. And
Richard, is that an issue with this?
No, not in this case. They're all family.
No.
They're all.
yeah, they're all related, because it's 3 unrelated on the too many people in a house. If you have more than 3 unrelated people in a household, it's not permitted.
Well, at any point, if somebody files a concern or a complaint, or however you want to state it, those are tracked. So you can follow up and find out what, the status is, what
Yeah,
was
if you fill out,
discovered, if anything.
if you fill out the form on the
And they
website,
can give you, actually, even if you don't do it on the website, you should be able to call that office that's responsible for that, and they should be able to give you an update of what the status is. And I know sometimes there are certain actions that require legal action, that does take, a much longer. I'm not saying that's the case in this, I'm just saying that can sometimes feel like it's much longer. And unfortunately, that's just that legal process. But at any point, even if it isn't something that's a legal concern, it's just a code violation that's not quite as strict, you can almost always, or you should be able to call and find out. And if you don't get any response from that department, call me and I will find out for you.
Well, I think this one, Craig may agree with me. Wasn't quite as close to it, but he definitely was downwind. At least when the summer southern breezes were blowing. It almost seemed like it was time for EPA to step in. You laugh.
I can see that.
But really, It
It
was
is-
a
it is
contender for a
ultimately-
super site.
This is ultimately a people problem, not an animal problem.
Yeah.
And
Right.
especially during the summer months when people sit outside at night, you know, this is the source of frequent neighborhood calls to 911. So there's lots of emergency vehicles, there's alcohol involved,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
all kinds of violation, you know, strange behavior.
There are more problems than just the animals.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember I brought up, and actually, Richard, I'm not sure what you might have to weigh in on this, and we don't want to spend, I know, but so much time talking about this, but it appeared to me, and maybe because there's a for sale sign in front of the house, but as long as I've been living there, there have been frequent cars that would pull up just for, you know, what seemed like a few minute transaction. And this always struck me as odd. And I've never had this explained to me. And then there'd be some kind of transaction going on and they'd drive away. And I've never understood what that is about. Do you know?
I think it's
Really
called
don't.
clocking.
Clocking?
Clocking.
As in clockers?
Well, it's just a term for maintaining a business model where they pull up and a transaction occurs and they drive off.
Of a particular kind?
Well, generally speaking. yeah.
Usually drug sales.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly what it looks like. But
And when
but
you
it's-
complain about that, the police department gets involved and they do have people investigating.
Well, the peculiar thing is the number of times that, you know, at this point, anybody in the neighborhood calls 911, they automatically know, oh, we know who it is. We'll be there shortly. And with the number of times that they visited, it would seem peculiar that they haven't discovered anything like this. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've been there 10 years, and it's been 10 years of pretty much that.
The same thing.
Yeah, it's degraded over the years, you know, depending on your opinion about what a good situation is. I've been working on keeping a profile that doesn't threaten the neighbors. If I'm perceived as a threat, an angry person, then
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes that goes against you. So, yeah. But that's where you have to really work on getting the proper people involved from the city, the police department, the health department, you know, the proper building code enforcement or whatever happens to be the problem, and let them do it instead of you do it.
yeah, well, that's pretty much been the drill on it so far. And then, of course, the creatures went away, which was a big help. And it, you know, composting has begun. So
And you said they've moved?
the person who
Or they're no longer
had all
there?
the creatures moved away
Okay.
temporarily, not permanent.
Well, you know, if it turned out these were two-legged creatures, I just thought maybe they were stopping to buy eggs or something.
Like emus or something like that. That would be a whole different thing. Fences would have to be higher.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then you'd have another call on that one because, I mean, they're allowed 3 chickens.
Or,
And is it 4 chickens?
but no rooster.
I'm sorry, 4 chickens.
So the eggs should not fertile when you.
I'm convinced that due process is adequate for this. This can't be anything enormously new or totally out of
Just keep
bounds.
pursuing it, yeah. And you'll get it,
Unfortunately, there are people that learn to work the system.
yeah.
They learn to avoid, and they know how far they can push things, and they just continue to. There usually aren't that many in Fayetteville, but there are everywhere.
There are a
Some.
few,
And there, I think most neighborhoods have an experience with one at some point, you know, of somebody, whether it's a absentee property owner that doesn't care that we have an ordinance that doesn't allow, you know, a certain number of unrelated people because they live in, you know, another part of the world or something, and they're collecting their rent. Or if it's, you know, something like this, and unfortunately, it just sometimes it takes much longer to have the system work, but hopefully it will always work eventually.
just be vigilant.
For instance, there's a motorhome park in the driveway. And the guy who's taking a sabbatical stayed in it. And, you have the obvious questions there about, what's the sewer arrangement for this and that sort of stuff.
That is a good question, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's somewhere in between the health department and EPA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that still needs to be asked first of of code enforcement.
Yeah, if somebody is living in a trailer,
That's not,
I
I don't think that's
don't know
allowed.
if that's
Motorhome.
our motorhome.
I don't think that's allowed.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I know that there are certain limitations on where they're parked, but
Yeah,
actually residing in one,
And
that would
a number-
definitely be a question for code.
number of cars in the yard and driveway, and,
Yeah.
there are rules about that. And I think there are rules about not living in a motor home outside the house. I'm not sure though.
Craig, we've got a classic case here. We're gonna learn a lot. As this
Yes.
all gets sorted out.
Yeah, you need to start
And the grass
calling,
grows back where the awful stuff was and the driveway clears out.
call up code enforcement tomorrow and see what you can find out about the motorhome situation, and you might have a handle on it right there.
Okay, so that's what's going on with Jennings Plaza.
Okay. Stan, how about your neighborhood?
It's pretty quiet. We've had some utility work done along 6th Street. That's made it kind of interesting to get through the area at times. And I'm still waiting on the sidewalk, the last block of sidewalk.
I thought they had all that in over there.
No, I live where the sidewalk ends.
Oh.
And I have for about 20 years now. And they had, the funny thing is they had federal funds, since there was a bus stop on the lower portion of Morningside.
Now, didn't they just finish putting sidewalks all the way down Morningside?
Well, except for my block. Because my block is not covered under the federal matching funds, they're having to come up with different sales tax. So, and I talked to them a few weeks back, and they're still planning on getting it done before the end of the year, so we'll see.
Okay, I thought they got the whole street done.
No, that's great, up to the corner.
Are you cornering on Huntsville or on 6th?
I'm a corner on Morningside and Fairlane, which is one block down from 6th Street. And there's no sidewalk now.
There's some pretty steep bluff there. There's a steep bank. Makes it difficult to create.
No, they're gonna be putting a sidewalk over the ditch and taking out all my rocks and plants and stuff and just
Be
make.
drainage plus sidewalk
Yes.
outfit.
Yeah, which I don't object to, I just wish they'd get it done. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
Albert?
Well, Town Branch neighborhood announces its annual 5K Veterans Memorial foot race on the 12th of November. Starts at the National Cemetery. It's a fundraiser for expansion of the Fayetteville National Cemetery. And I have a few more copies of this for anybody who wants to hand some out. And the prizes include dog tag, military dog tag, saying what place you finished. Plus, there are donated items that go to people who attend and participate. And everybody who enters gets a wick out shirt that memorializes the race and so forth. And a good one to run in again later. So it's a terrific deal, and most of the people in my neighborhood and most veterans I know in our city and area would like to see the sale part property purchased for this purpose, but that has not occurred, and so there's a risk of apartments being built there. And I'm going to defer the rest of our neighborhood time to Richard Tiffany, who wants to talk about related matters. If you'd come up here to one of these, Richard, where we can see your face and hear you. We talked a little this afternoon about this subject. He's been doing a lot more than I have to work on the details of this plan. Got a mic there to talk to. And yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, said earlier that I own the house just north of the National Cemetery on Government Street, and the sale barn's across the street there. And they had, a year and a half ago, had made application to get rezoned, and it got turned down. And then end of September, or in September sometime, I got a letter from a developer saying that they had gotten the rezoning passed in July, and that they were wanting a variance for some other things. And so I checked about why I didn't get a letter, and actually before I checked, I asked some of my neighbors, and there were I found a couple neighbors that also didn't get letters that should have, and so went to the city. I guess I started talking with Kit, and then the city attorney, and then he referred me to Andrew in the planning office, and
Andrew Garner. Right?
Garner, right? And they, I guess, pretty much convinced me that it was probably incompetence that they didn't send letters, that they did send letters to some wrong people.
And that would be the developers are charged with the responsibility of
With
sending.
responsibility, yeah, the developers are supposed to come up with a list that there's access on the website, and to figure out who to send letters to, and so they submitted a list of people that they'd sent to, and there were 3 of us that weren't on the list. I was thinking at one point there were a 4th person, but he's about 5 feet north on Government from actually cornering on the sale barn. But then they submitted some plans, and to me it looked like that there was some issues that could be significant problems for some of us neighbors, particularly about water issues, water drainage. That on the north side of the house, north of me, there's a small drainage ditch that both ends of Government flow down to the middle and flow off into this ditch, and it currently overflows in heavy rains, and the possibility of having additional water put into it from the development looked like some people could have water actually in their house. And I've been up to the city planning office half a dozen times in the last month or so, and talked to various people, and kind of was reassured that the calculations are being done, but to verify that the peak water flow isn't going to be greater than what it is coming off the grassland, but it doesn't look like it. From my experience, I lived in that house 8 years, that the grassland does a pretty good job of absorbing rainfall, and that the amount of hard surface that they have flowing out into Government Street, and also into a little water retention tank that flows off to the east, that wouldn't affect us directly, but looked like both of those were problems that the way that they were dealing with it wasn't adequate to deal with the rainfall and the runoff that was going to result. I guess on.
Well, what did they tell you about the formula they're using for that site?
They just said they'd gone through the calculations, and that the peak water flow at any for a particular rain event is supposed to be less than what it currently is running off the grassland.
And that's been an argument with our neighborhood in Ruskin Heights and many things out around the periphery, that there's almost no runoff till a storm gets really heavy from that kind of land, absorbent soil. And
well, they said they had various data points, like in 2 and 4 and 8 inch rains in a 24-hour period, and that, to me, living there in a 2-inch rain, it almost all soaks into the grass, and for them to say that we're going to just have a little smaller area that's going to be diverted from the rooftops and the driveway out into directly out into the street, is going to be a lot more water flow than what would if it was in the grassland. And so I was having a hard time getting anybody to take my complaint seriously, I felt. And Monday I brought my neighbor who's on the north side of the ditch, who's probably the one who's most at risk of having his house flooded, Eugene Keister. He's 88 years old, a World War II vet. Took him up to talk to the head engineer, and then we also talked to Jesse and Fulcher, and Jesse, I think, finally understood the seriousness of the problem and said he would check into some things and get back with me probably by the end of the week, which I guess is tomorrow. So I have hopes that that we can work things out. I guess I've also before I'd gotten the response from Jesse about things, I had feeling like I wasn't getting heard. That I left a message with Matthew Petty, from the city council, about it, and he got back with me. He'd been out of town, got back with me this morning, and he said he was going to check into things as well. And so I have hopes that.
Did you get in touch with your two aldermen?
They're not people I know. I've known Matthew for several years, and so.
Well, I suggest you get in touch with them as well, since
Yeah.
they are in your ward.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
and this is all a new process to me, and so trying to figure out who to talk to and to deal with things is.
And I also question as to the validity of passing that rezoning without notifying the neighbors.
Yeah, it could be
Because, I
brought
mean,
back.
it's a law. They're supposed to notify within a certain distance.
That would be one of the reasons the council could at least reconsider it, take another look at it.
So that was one of the things Matthew said he'd check into, is what the requirements to revisit the zoning issue, and so.
Well, I truly hope you get good answers on all this, and you just need to keep after the folks in planning. I suggest you get in touch with your other two aldermen and get them on the page
Absolutely.
for this.
And if I may bring up, I don't know the extent of Jennings Plus. Maybe Locust Avenue comes down, or Church Avenue, and then Locust Avenue will be getting flooding at the very end of it, and if it's one of your neighborhoods, it's adjacent to Martin Luther King and
School.
Yeah, school. So the concerns of water leaving that cemetery site are now to be
Sale barn.
apartment site, sale barn, should have been cemetery. Going
Well, sure.
east will be a concern. It will directly affect people downstream at the edge of Walker Park. For instance, end of Locust gets the same kind of flooding you're talking about over there. I've seen the houses at the end of Locust, just across the Spout Spring branch comes down from the northeast. Tanglewood branch comes along the edge of the sale barn property, and they join just past the end of Locust Avenue at approximately 9th Street level. And the yards down there get deep.
Well, you guys need
Very
to
deep.
get in
Up
touch
to
with
the
your
floor level
aldermen
houses.
and
Yeah.
tell them about this so they'll be apprised of it, and they can make sure along the way that things are taken care of. I mean, that's part of what they do. They can at least put a little pressure on the folks in planning to make sure that those issues are addressed along the way, and but it's it's in retrospect now, so, you know, it's kind of hard to put the genie back in the box.
That's true, but
Everything else okay?
if you don't make the effort, nobody even knows it's going
You
on.
got your 5K race coming up?
We're excited about that.
Okay, well, good.
Everybody come run.
And, there's,
I have a question real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
In your discussions with planning, I know that they said that they did calculations for the runoff from that property. Did they say anything about the impact beyond the property border?
Well, they just said that the peak flow.
It should be less.
The peak flow will be less for these
Okay.
various benchmark rainfall events.
But what was the?
but that's
What was the peak?
permeable surface?
They're
That's
planning on
calculating that, or-
having close to 10 acres of hard surface, either rooftops or parking lot,
And
and out of a 12-acre site.
a little underground storage. You told me something about that
And,
on
Yeah.
the east side.
and so the parking lot feeds into an underground storage
The
unit.
underground
that-
retaining.
Retention pond, yeah, retention tank.
That to me, you know, the way I pose the question to them is that if you get an inch of rain from this much hard surface, it's going to totally fill the underground storage tank. That if you have a 2-inch rain,
What happens to the other
the
end?
other inch, they say, well, it's being metered out of the tank at an appropriate rate. But if the ground would absorb 1.5 inches out of a 2-inch rain, I don't see how they can come up with less runoff.
I don't either.
You know, out of a tank that only holds 1 inch total volume. And I talked to the engineer on the project and the head engineer both, and neither one of them gave me an answer. Jesse's in charge of the project, but he said he doesn't know about the technical details of
Yeah, he's not an
of
engineer.
water. He's not an engineer, and so, but I did, when I saw him on Monday, get his attention that yes, it is a serious issue with people that could have
Well, it
flooded
all-
houses that.
Everything on a project like that has to go through water and sewer and be approved.
Yeah.
They have to have,
You know, and my recommendation to Jesse was that not having them, that the fact that they wouldn't walk me through the calculation to show where it all came from, that the only thing I could assume was that
They don't know.
that they were assuming more water was gonna run off the pasture than actually ran off.
I would suggest that you also contact Sarah Lewis, just because of her education. She has a PhD in environmental
sciences,
dynamics.
yeah.
She's
Yeah.
done educational sessions and conference sessions on low impact development, and so she has a knowledge of this type of issue.
Yeah,
and even though she's not one of your aldermen, she might be able to.
she has a good handle on it.
She does, and she might be able to either find out the details and kind of convert it from that engineering to, or if there is an issue, she might
Yeah.
be able to address it.
I'm
And we
not
don't-
an engineer, but I've had some engineering
Right.
background, and so if they were willing to go through it, I'm sure that I can understand.
And of
what-
course, we don't know in their plans if they've got anything in the way of bioswales planned or anything like that, or, you know, whether they have any secondary retention facilities besides the tank.
Well, I talked to the engineer, and there didn't seem to be anything that he was aware of except the tank.
Okay.
And I don't see those plans I've looked at.
And I looked on the plans and didn't see anything, so.
Because usually they have water remediation built into all that, you know, that's,
The two buildings that front right on Government Street.
I mean, they can't have 80% impermeable surface.
They can have up to 85% for this
Is
zone.
it 85%?
Yeah, for this zone.
Oh, that's right, it's not on the top.
But the
Yes.
two buildings that are right on Government Street, that they plan on piping it directly into the street is what it shows on the plans, which those roofs, you know,
That'll be-
is a smaller area than the grassland, but it's going to be immediate.
Keep after it.
Well, they're not planning with this kind of plan to protect people downstream from the kind of flooding we had in the last rainy season.
Well, I mean, our spring rains, we had tremendous spring rains. And,
Yeah, record.
I mean, like that mess up there called Ruskin Heights where they left it, I mean, it just washed everything
And it
out.
was nasty mud. It took
Oh, yeah,
soil with
it took a lot of soil with it, and it filled up a lot of our current drainage systems with silt, and, you know, so you know, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine after the last spring that these engineers and planners have not taken a serious view. The city did put forward a program to deal with what they still call drainage. And you know, when you say drainage, it kind of gets under my cap and stings me, because we're talking about the only way to prevent flooding downstream is not to let the water get in there fast.
Well,
Try to
even on
keep it
Skull
where it
Creek and some of
falls.
those other places during the heavy rains, we had severe problems in the trail systems, and
I think a lot of what, I think you may be talking about the money that they allocated to the repairs.
Yeah, they
To
moved some work.
prioritize those, and those were repairs to existing systems, as far as I know, like drainage. But I know with the streamside protection ordinance and the low impact development,
there's been a lot of new stuff put in
they are
place.
trying to encourage that. But I think those drainage repairs were basically to repair existing systems. I mean, we can't go back and redevelop the entire city, and I think that's probably what those repairs were, just to address
But this
the
is
needs
new
at that time.
development,
But
so they need
hopefully
to
from
address
this
it,
point
yes.
forward, yeah, and
Yeah.
new development, they should be able to address it
They should be
in a
on
better
this,
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, when the streamside protection ordinance came up, you know, on Willow Street, I back up to the Spout Spring branch.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
And,
yeah.
you know, and so I came and looked at what the proposal was, and I spoke before the city council saying that, you know, I appreciate them wanting to protect the streams, and that the adjacent landowners have some responsibility, but to me, it looked like that the people who were creating new hard surface that weren't on the stream side was really where the majority of the problem came from, and they said, well, we're not dealing with that at this time, and so
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a process, and that's where this group also comes in. We tried to get in on the implementation phases of some ordinances to see if we can help make them better fitted to neighborhoods. And we have been successful with a few things in the past on that, and it sounds like something we can help get together, but we have to see that they are trying to put in an ordinance, like, have Sarah Lewis bring forward one, or somebody like that that's interested in this particular issue, and see if we can't get something in place, if it's not in place, before the building takes place.
Well, the low impact development way of doing things that we've all been taught for years and ignored by engineers and planners and developers in most cases I'll say, because some have tried very hard to do the right thing. But the work that was done in certain sites as repair of an existing stormwater situation included putting in very large pipe to get the water from one place down the street, and this is upstream from my neighborhood, and I went and watched it quite a bit. The gist of this is they put in a huge pipe to keep water from running off the side of a hill, took it right down the street. There's still street surface water. They put a sidewalk on one side over that, and they routed all the water there. When it ends, that pipe is so big, you can crawl into it easily. Then there's a gap with just a concrete swale, and then the water has to go under Martin Luther King Boulevard to an old existing pipe that's so big. Yeah, there's a significant
Yeah.
gap. I can't call the numbers. I should know them, but I didn't make sure I remembered. Anyway, this means that in the winter, it could be early in the morning after this rain. If the rain continued as it was earlier today and then froze, which can happen in the winter, or snow combination, the water can run across MLK almost exactly under the underpass, right there, just west of the underpass, because it will become surface water when it comes out of that big pipe that brings it from uphill. Now, I asked some of the workers when they were doing this, and you know, no problem seeing this pipe's bigger than that one, and it's like 70 feet maybe between the pipes where it's surface water. And they said they were only authorized, the money was only available to do this part to there. So they can't afford to dig out, or go under there and re-tunnel and put in a bigger pipe.
Part of the catch.
Well, my neighborhood would not want it to be piped all the way over there faster. Some of them would say, I'd rather run over the street maybe than in their house, because this is a quicker flow. So when we're doing this piping stuff, we're doing just the opposite of low impact development. And somehow, you know, they've got to quit using the funding for that sort of thing and use the funding, for instance, to buy a little property such as is available in many cases that already is near the stream, or it's wetland that feeds the stream and that it can hold water.
You get into governmental process and best practices and everything else along the way, and you know the fight as well as I do. We've all been there and done that.
Political fight to
Sure,
change
and there's the political part of it. So
things.
we can't fix it yet, but we can work on it a little chip at a time.
Thank you.
And okay, any announcements? Anybody got any? Well, you had your announcement already.
I got it.
You announced your 5K race.
I've got a couple.
Okay.
The city has once again won Volunteer Community of the Year for the state of Arkansas. We've also have won, I'm sure you're aware of the Shine Award that we have won the last 3 years. Well, as a city that won multiple years in the past, we were entered into a new category, and so we won the Superstar Shine Award.
Okay.
For Keep Arkansas Beautiful. And I believe in that category, it was all populations of multiple year winners, and we won it. So that was good.
All right.
We also were mentioned, Fayetteville was mentioned as a honorable mention in the Arkansas Business Journal's City of Distinction for the Quality of Life category, focused primarily on the Fayetteville Forward program. But
didn't we get another top 10 or something?
I think we
Just
did.
recently. We were nominated, we were awarded best city on something, some magazine. What was that?
It wasn't that American Bloom stuff.
Well, we got a lot from
Well,
American
yeah, we
Bloom.
won several awards for
Yeah.
American
Yeah.
Bloom again this year.
There was another one that we got that you didn't mention before, and I've forgotten which one it is. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm.
You know which one it is too, don't you?
I think I do. I'm just.
Okay, we'll review
Sure.
that for the next administration.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nothing I can think of.
Well, then I think we should bring this meeting to a close.
One thing, we don't have all that many people here today, but I think we have enough to make a little noise just to say thanks to Don for the work he's put in. I don't know that I'd still be here if it wasn't for Don, so you can either, hold him accountable for that, or we can say thanks.
Responsible, at
I'd say
least.
yes to that.
Does this mean you'll be available for coaching in your new role?
He's going to be your vice chair, so.
Give me a call, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything about bad habits, he'll be in charge of.
I'll have to work on my camera style. I'm kind of a mumbler and don't tend to look at the camera.
Well,
Learn about that.
Fruit gets over it pretty easy.
Yeah, she's adaptable.
She's really good for us. Well, once again, together, we will make a difference. Thank you.
I'm in.